What's up, guys? Mike here from Ekim Knives, and I'm back with another episode of how to make a frame lock. When we last left off, we made a pocket clip which we had a little bit of trouble with. This guy right here, because of the contouring on the frames, and we also, as I just said, contoured the frames. So now, there are a few critical tasks that we have to complete in order to get this knife functioning the way we want it to. And this is a very important episode, guys, so pay attention. If you want, grab a little notebook, take notes, because this is going to determine the action of your knife. In this one, we're going to carbidize. We're going to bend the lock bar, and we're going to finally grind the lock and test our lockup and test our action for the very first time. Some very important stuff, so stick with me today, guys, and we're going to bang this one out. It's nice to be back. Yeah, so we need to go down about another 35 thou in the back. And because this is a little closer to center, maybe another 15 thou in the front. Alright, so we're just going to top those off. And we're doing this purposely before we bend the lock bar, so it could sit flat on the block here. Okay, it turned out to be 30 thou for that front stop pinhole and 35 thou for the back. And of course the camera wasn't rolling, but I had the end mill go a little crazy. I guess a piece of it broke off and it kind of oblonged my hole. It's a good thing this is a prototype knife anyway, so we know to watch for that next time. Okay, this little setup is where I bend my lock bars, and it's just simply a very old drill press vise, and I took some pieces of brass and just super glued them in there. Just so it doesn't mar up the handle, but you want something to hold it back here, and obviously you want the lock bar to be able to move. Because we're going to heat right here to a cherry red. You want it blazing red hot, and then we're just going to push this down a little bit. And when I mean a little bit, guys, I'm going to get under here and show you. Okay. Can you see that? That's how much we're going to bend it over. About just so it clears the frame. So that's actually a little too far, but we're going to end up adjusting this and pumping it back. So we're going to bend it that far once it's hot. And of course, once it's hot, it'll stay there. Just in that relief is where you want it. And it should heat up pretty quickly. Okay, we're red hot. While it's still hot, push it down. If you have to go a little bit further, you can reheat. There we go. That looks like about it. That's actually probably a little too far, but we're going to pump that back, so no big deal. Our lockup is going to go right here. Kind of see it over that overhang, under that overhang rather. And so kind of like around here somewhere. So what we want to do is we want to die that. I know, more die gum. That's a lot. But that area right there, I'll get some of that excess off of there. And that should be plenty. Okay, you see our lock bar is bent. It's about where you want it. Like I said, that might be a little bit too far for this build, but that's okay. And now what I like to do, and this isn't completely necessary, I know a lot of guys don't do this, but I like to put a tiny, tiny little chamfer right here. And when I say tiny, I really emphasize that. This is a super fine Scotch-Brite wheel, so I'm basically just going to touch it to the wheel. I'm trying to do this through the camera. So I'll bend it out a little bit so I don't get the frame. There we go, that's it. Just soften up that edge. Alright, let's go carbidize. This is a carbidizer. It comes with this little, it probably is a Dremel thing. Let me zoom you out so you can see. So here's a carbidizer. This is the BB tongue carb, and I think USA Knife Maker is the only place you can get these. They're very hard to find. There's not much to it. This is actually just an electrical box that somebody converted, and a Dremel engraving tool that somebody converted. If you are handy with electronics, you can make one of these. I didn't want to bother with that, but you might not have a choice because, like I said, they're very hard to find and they're very expensive when you do find them. I think they go for like 300 bucks or something like that. And like I said, I think I got this one from USA Knife Maker, if they have it in stock, because somebody's probably in their garage making these. Now, I do want to say I have a buddy that we make knives together. He's a local knife maker, and he made one, and we tested this one, the ready-made one, versus his, and his was almost like arc welding, and I think it was a little too much. So he was considering getting one of these because it lays down a cleaner finish. Now, for you guys wondering what the purpose of this thing is, basically it lays down a very thin layer of tungsten carbide film, if you will, over the lock face. And what that does is, tungsten carbide is very, very hard. Think of it like a 70-something Rockwell, compared to your blade, which maybe on the hard side is a 60 Rockwell. So this is going to make the titanium lock face much more wear resistant, and so you'll be able to get rid of problems like sticky locks. This should help out with that, and just overall life of your lockup. So before I lock up anything, I carbidize it, and carbidizing is very, very simple. Once you find one of these stupid things, is you get your little Dremel engraver thing here, and I have mine set up in this. Here, let me disconnect you so you can see it. So I got mine set up in this Panavice, and these things are great for stuff like these Panavices. This is the only thing I really use it for, this and etching my logo. But it's nice having that third hand. So what we want to do is just basically lay down a layer of carbide right there on the lock face. Okay, so I'm just going to shove this in here. Now I'm not putting too much stress on the lock bar. It looks like it's bent, but that's titanium's that wonderful property of the spring memory. Okay, now I'll go in here like this, turn it on. Kind of feels like a tattoo gun. And just kind of let it do its thing. You'll see the layer going down. Oh, you really can't see it. See that? So you just want to put down a nice even finish. That's it. I'll zoom you in so you can see what that looks like. If I can hold it steady. There you go. That's the kind of finish you're looking for. That has a nice little layer of carbide on it now. Look at that. So, of course, I've assembled the knife, as you can clearly see. And the reason we have that die in there, if you can see on the edge there, is now you want to take a razor blade, and we're just going to scribe a line so we have a reference of where that lock face is. So let me grab a razor blade and I'll show you what I mean. So, as you can see, I have the pivot in and the stop pin in, and both sides are attached. Don't try and do a shortcut here and only do one side. You know, like put the pivot through the lock side or something like that and do it that way. Because you'll find that things will try to align a little bit differently when you have both sides attached. So always, always, always when checking your lockup, assemble the entire knife. It's an extra step and it's a little bit of a pain, but it's totally worth it to go through the motions. Okay, what you want to do is watch your fingers first of all. Grab your little razor blade and get a thin razor blade, not those big utility blades, and hold this open up against the stop. and then put the blade inside like this and favor the lock face and scribe a line. I like to go a couple of times just to make sure I get it. Okay, that should do it. Alright, welcome to art class. Just kidding. Okay, so here's the line we just scribed in here. Now I'm going to draw this on the paper in very large so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. Alright, I got to get around the tripod. Okay, so basically this is a gigantic version of what we're looking at right now. There's our flipper tab, and our blade's going to go out like that. Okay, here's our pivot and our stop pin track. As you can see, I'm clearly an artist. Okay, here's the line that we just scribed. This is the material right here that's going to be removed. Now you want the lockup, this line represents our lock face on our lock bar. You want the lockup to connect down here at the bottom only. So essentially the way to do that is you have to overgrind this part here, the top. So we're going to come in, and this is going to be an exaggeration, but basically we're going to grind like this on an angle. So all this is going to get removed so we could contact on the bottom only. Now you don't want this extreme of an angle. Ideally you want 1 or 2 degrees, so it's going to be more subtle like this, right? But the bottom is going to protrude the most, and that's where our lockup is going to happen. So when we look at the blade, we want to just connect right here, and it's about the size of the marker line that I just put in there. That's about all the lockup we need. If you lock up, we'll go back to our drawing here. If we lock up the entire length of this 100%, we line it up perfectly to that line and we lock the whole thing up, what happens is the edges wear away, the bottom wears away, and then you get lock rock, and then the whole blade moves back and forth like this. You don't want that. And that's a lot of engagement, which means you're probably going to get lock stick as well. You could theoretically just lock up at the top and just have one point of contact up there, but this is further away from the pivot, which is going to give us better geometry. Okay, so this is the ideal. Now, a lot of people do this different. This is just the way I do it, and it happens to work out well for me, where I don't have any lock issues. You know what? I'll show you on a blade. Okay, here, remember this guy, the Damascus Albatross? You see nice snappy action and no stick whatsoever. Take a look at where it's locking up. You can see the shiny part right there at the bottom. Nowhere else on the blade. So if you hold a light in here, you see nice early lockup too. Of course, I don't have a light, do I? No, I don't. Yeah, so the top part of the lock bar is not contacting the blade whatsoever. And believe me, that little bit is plenty strong. Not going anywhere. And then, no stick. Okay, so that's what we're going to shoot for. Now, I'm going to show you how to do this. I have my flat platen set up. So this is already moved to the position where it's going to be tensioned properly for a belt. So set up a belt, then take the belt off, because we want to reference off of this. Now you're going to need one of these. This is an angle cube. They're pretty cheap. You can get them on Amazon or Chef Knives to Go. I think they have them. And what you want to do is we want to reference the platen. So we're going to go ahead and turn it on. Now for me, I flat grind my lockups, and I like a 7.5 degrees. So I'm going to zero this out. So we'll zero this. Hopefully you guys can see that. Okay, so we're zeroed out right there. And now I'm going to move it directly to my work rest, and I'm going to adjust this until it's 7.5 degrees, and I want to adjust it in like this. .775, that's a little too much. And it doesn't have to be perfect 750. Anywhere between 7 and 8 you should be good to go. So 755, and I'm going to tighten that down and lock it in. We'll put it back on there. And that should be reading 0, so I might have moved it, so we're going to 0 it out again. There we go, we got 0. Back on the work rest, and you can see it definitely moved a little bit. So we're going to adjust that. You want to check it a few times to make sure, because 860 that it's showing now is a problem. We don't want that. Alright, we'll double check again. 745. And we're reading 0. And 740. Okay, now it's 755. So I'm happy with that. As you can see, if you tap it, it's going to move a little bit, but we want to get in that ballpark. So 755, I'm happy with that. Okay, now we want to throw our belt on. For this, I use a VSM 120. Where is it? Where is it? There you go, 120 VSM. Ceramic belt. So what we want to do is come in here and just grind this part, right? So on this particular blade, right underneath that little overhang and up to the line. Now you could pretty much grind however you want up to the line, that really doesn't make a difference, but you want to make sure that you're grinding the top part like I showed you on the drawing. Grind that in a little bit deeper. So make sure you stop and slow down and just start doing very light passes when you get close to that line. Now I like to put a little bit of tape on the backside. This way when I'm grinding, I'm not scratching up the blade too bad. It really doesn't matter, you could always clean it up later. Now this one, as you can see, get my hand out of the way so you can see it. This doesn't have a flat spot on the spine, so I'm rocking all over the place here. So I'm going to have to kind of guide it by hand a little bit, but this 1, 2, 3 block is going to act as a stop so I don't get too far out of where I want it to be. Okay, so we're just going to start approaching that line nice and slow. Remember to keep it cool. What we look like so far. Give it a quick dip. The next pass. Okay. Once it gets to about that point there, you can see the slight angle that I'm grinding on. Get a good view there. We're talking about like 1 or 2 degrees, so this part is ground less than the top there. Okay? I can even increase that just a little bit, but now I'm going to very cautiously approach that line. Do not pass that line without testing. When you grind under an overhang like I am right here, the belt tends to get stuck in here, so periodically you're going to have to clean that out. So I'm just going to go on this edge and just clean that up a little bit. Give me a little more room. And of course we'll make that nicer later. Okay, we're basically at the line right there, as you can see. At this point, I'm going to give it our first test. I still have a little bit of steel left before that line, so we'll test it in the knife. You want to assemble it completely, but my guess from doing this a few times is it's not going to lock up just yet. So now, because it's not going to lock up yet, I'll just show you what we're going to look at, what you're going to do as you test and then grind, then test and grind. So a test grind to get to the next point. You know what, this block is kind of in the way. We're going to get rid of that. Okay, I'm not making contact yet. I'm just going to give it like a 2-second push. 1, 2. That's it. And now we'll test fit it. As you can see, I really did not take much off. You can still see a part of the line showing there. But let's give it a test fit. Okay, we have the knife here fully assembled. And remember, fully assemble it. Don't try to use just the lock side. And as you can see here, I'm pulling nice and tight. We are not locking up. We are right there though. So I really basically just need to touch this off for another 2 seconds and we should be able to get the lockup we want. The top of the lock bar here, so this top part is already clear of the lock bar, so it's really just going to take a 2-second touch. Now guys, I can't stress this enough. If you overgrind your lock, you have to start over, right? There's no stretching of titanium. I know people tried it. There's really not much you could do if you overgrind. So if it takes you 200 tries and 25 assemblies, then that's what you do, okay? So approach this very, very, very slowly. Alright, we're going to go in, just take a hair off, and then we're going to reassemble and test it out. Okay guys, looks like we got it on that second try there. Nice lockup. It's a little sticky, but we have to tune it yet. So if yours is sticky, don't freak out. As long as you got your geometry right. Now I'll show you. So I won't force it. Right? So we'll just flip it. And that's where our lockup is. Right there. Now of course my stop pin and my stop pin isn't screwed in or anything. It's press fit, so that might move just a little bit, but I'm not too worried about it. Now, as far as stick goes, I can't unlock the knife right now. And that's okay. Don't freak out if you can't do that. I actually have to relieve some of the pressure on the blade to unlock it. But check this out. What I'm going to do is very, very lightly pump the lock bar. You know what? I should set you up by the table so you can see this. Here's our lockup. Sticky, right? It's locking up right where we want it to. If you look on the back of the lock, there's our wear point. That's good. Now how do we fix that stick? Remember when I said we overbent that lock bar? So now what you want to do is gently unlock that lock bar and just pump it out a little bit. So overextend it a little bit. Give it a few little pumps like that. Try again. Now you don't want to overbend it. You don't want to put it back too far the other way. So try it. Flip the knife 10 times and see if the stick goes away. This one's still sticky. So I'm going to pump it a little more. Unlock it and pump it a little bit. It's getting better. I don't have to muscle the blade. So at this point, what I'll look to do is maybe recarbidize the lock face, and see if that'll fix it. But of course, you don't want to open up that lock bar too much, because you're going to lose detent if you do that. Everything's a trade-off here. So if I overdo it, let's say this, I'm going to pump it way too far, and now my detent is basically useless. The blade will fall open. No stick, but I lost my detent. Not good. Okay, so now I'm going to pump that back in. If you overdo it, take the knife apart and just pump it the other way. So I'm going to do that right now. We'll get this lock sorted, and I'll come to you with the end of the video. Looking pretty good now. No stick. So it turns out that I had one of the handle scales loose because I'm a doofus, number one. And number two, I just hit it with the carbidizer just real quick one more time. I noticed that sometimes during the break-in process, the first 50 flips or so of the knife, that you can kind of go past the carbidizing. So I just recarbidized, the titanium kind of settled, because it will work harden as you flip it. So let the titanium settle. I recarbidized, and looks like the lockup is settling down nicely now. And I didn't have to pump the lock bar too much and lose my detent. And of course, no blade play, up and down. You definitely don't want that. So don't loosen up your lock bar so much where it's just going to be a wiggly mess, because that's no good either. And that's where our lockup is. Let me zoom you in. Whoa, 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 whoa. Camera's trying to take a dive. That's where we're at with the lockup. And of course there was a little stick there. There we go. That tiny little bit of stick, that'll go away. See, now it's not doing it. So let me fix you guys. There we go. So, looks like we did good on this one. So far, so good. The next episode is going to be about some detail work and grinding the blade. I've done blade grind tutorials before, so I'm not going to waste a whole episode and take 3 weeks to put it out like I've been doing. I know, I can be honest with myself too. And show you how to grind a blade. You guys know how to do that. If you don't, there's a hollow grind one and a flat grind one. Check those out. It'll be the same thing. The only thing different is I just take it out of the handles. You can grind in the handles, that's no big deal. We'll cover that more next time. But the next video is going to be some detail work. Right? Detail work that a lot of people ignore, and I know a lot of you guys are going to skip the video. Please don't skip the detail work video, because this is what will set your knife apart from others. Right? If you have sharp corners on your knife, yeah, it's not a very exciting video and it's not a very exciting process, but you will stand out as having a better work than the next guy if you focus on the details. Right? This is the foundation. Right? It's what you do from here on out that sets you apart. So, enough preaching. That's it for this one, guys. This is Mike here from Ekim Knives, and I finally got a frame lock video out. I'll catch you guys on the next video.